Aislinn Sarnacki is an outdoor reporter for the Bangor Daily News, famous for her columns and blogs, especially her series on one-minute hikes in Maine. If you always thought these hikes went off without a hitch, you'd be wrong.
My 2 big toenails turned black afterwards and fell off.
This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine, a show about fun and adventure in the outdoors and sometimes about our natural resources and sometimes about occasional controversies. Call this one today educational. By the time we're done with Aislinn Sarnacki today, she'll be lost, lame, bloodied, itchy, and sunburned. 2 weeks ago during the Eastern Maine Sportsman Show, Aislinn debuted her first ever presentation of a new program she put together called Hiking Lessons Learned the Hard Way. If she does it again, go see it because it's got a lot of funny video in it too. But the lessons she learned over the last 3 years are actually valuable for everyone. And we'll squeeze some of them in on today's show. Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine is brought to you by Hammond Lumber, Dysarts, EBS, Doors Equipment, and Napa Auto Parts. The setting is this. We're in the classroom at the Sportsman Show. Aislinn is in front with slides and video ready to go, so take it away.
So, for those of you who don't know me, I'm BDN reporter for the Outdoors section, and I have a blog, Act Out with Aislinn, and also have a column that I'm known for, which is the 1-minute hike column, and that's going to be expanding in the years to come into paddling and other types of sports. And a lot of people know me from my dog Oreo, who's pictured there with me, and I write about him quite often. And wish he could be here today, but he's a little crazy still. So maybe when he gets older and more mellowed out, he can come to these shows. So 3 years of hiking equals 150 hikes, and now it's been 3.5 years. So I hike every single week, and it's a different trail. So that adds up over time, and it also equals some mistakes. And so I have to talk about today different mistakes that I've made and the lessons that I've learned from them. And I go from packing mistakes to footwear mistakes that I've made, dog-related mistakes, lots of them. And from each of these mistakes, hopefully I learn my lessons, and sometimes I will make a mistake twice, but...
Mistake number 1. Take a map. For the next several minutes, Aislinn showed video of her 1-minute hike of Number 4 Mountain on the east side of Moosehead Lake. Several things went wrong. First, the road to the trailhead wasn't plowed. She had to park far below her expected starting point and had to hike up just to get to the trailhead. Second, she got to a crossroad where there was a sign. The sign was for a snowmobile trail called Number 4 Mountain, pointing left. So she followed the sign and followed the road around the mountain. She went miles out of her way before realizing she should give up and turn back.
When I got back and studied the maps later, I realized where I went wrong and was like, I walked further than I would have hiked. People really liked that video, and I thought about why they would like that video in particular. And I think it was everybody goes out and makes mistakes, and I've heard of multiple times where people are walking on a trail and they get lost. And I just think they could relate to it, and I wanted to put that out there to let them know that it happens. You just have to know when to turn around. And
in a slightly different way, I've made that mistake a dozen times. I'm often driving Maine's backwoods logging roads. Often ATV trails are developed along these same roads. In certain areas, there's a lot of them. If you're anywhere from, let's say, around Grand Lake Stream, heading south down towards Route 9, the airline, crossing the Stud Mill Road along the way, you know that there are many logging roads that go south through these woods, and they all look alike, and they don't have any road signs. What they do have is a lot of ATV trail signs, pointing in the direction of towns and roads, and especially restaurants and gas stations. I don't know how many times I've decided to follow those signs along a good road, only to have the road slowly turn to crap and become just an ATV trail. And somehow, that always seems to happen right at dusk. I'm so guilty.
So I thought I'd start with navigational lessons. Maps, maps, maps. Maps are so valuable. They're worth thousands and thousands of words, and having a trail map out there with you, or just a map of the terrain in general, is so helpful. Bring your maps. Often I'll even if it's a really easy trail right in town, if I don't have a copy of a map but it's on the internet, I just copy it, I hand draw it and bring it with me. That may be kind of silly, but I'll take a picture of it too, but I worry that I'll lose battery on whatever I've taken a picture of it with. So
Here's another one. There are a lot of popular trails, places you could never get lost in summer. But it's winter.
So, and I've learned this winter, if blazes are on the bedrock or the trail is marked by cairns, which are rock piles, like a lot of the trails in Acadia National Park, they don't make particularly good snowshoes because you can't see any of those in the winter when the snow is covering them. I found that out recently on Parkman Mountain. And I knew that already, but I wasn't sure what the terrain was like on Parkman Mountain, and I got up there and it was so bald that I lost the trail. It was still a good snowshoe because I had great views, but I didn't get to the top. So it was funny, I was hiking with people the other day, and I don't think they realize, I don't think many people know this, but 2 trail blazes, blazes are the marks on trees, one above the other, means that the trail is going to make an abrupt turn. And the people I was with didn't know that, and I didn't know that for a while. I was just like, why are there 2 blazes on that tree? And then I put it together after a little while. So there's some trail language out there. Cairns also can point you in the right direction. There are certain cairns called Bates Cairns in Acadia National Park, and it's made out of 2 rocks and then a flat rock on top, and then a smaller directional rock on top of that, and that rock will be pointing wherever the trail is going. And I had no idea, and I just learned it by reading up on it once. I actually have a book on cairns. So another lesson that I learned the hard way is that blowdowns in the winter, trees that have blown down, we've had a lot of that this winter, can really confuse things. So even a trail that's really well maintained, if you have really bad winter storms, ice storms for a few weeks, and then you go out on that trail, there may be blowdowns all across it, and then you can really lose a trail quite easily. And I think one of the most important lessons is just to know when to turn around and call it a day.
You're listening to Aislinn Sarnacki, outdoor reporter for the Bangor Daily News and author of The 1 Minute Hike. This is Hiking Lessons Learned the Hard Way, a classroom presentation. Aislinn debuted at the Eastern Maine Sportsman Show a couple of weeks ago. One sure way to make hiking mistakes is to pack light, which is good, but leave out some of the stuff you end up needing. More hiking lessons learned the hard way when Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine returns on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. Today's show features Aislinn Sarnacki, outdoor writer for the Bangor Daily News. This is Hiking Lessons Learned the Hard Way. Since starting her 1 Minute Hike column in the newspaper 3 years ago, Aislinn has conducted over 150 hikes throughout Maine, and some of them didn't always go so well. What she's telling the crowd at the Eastern Maine Sportsman Show a couple of weeks ago is good advice for everyone.
So packing lessons that I have learned, always pack a headlamp. And one of the things that I learned is that you need to pack a headlamp per person. So if you're with a hiking buddy, they need to pack a headlamp too. And that's because the hard way I learned this is I was hiking on East Chairback Mountain, and we were up there. I think Derek probably remembers the story. We were in the it was winter time, and the hike took longer than we thought it would. And we were coming down, and it got dark, and I was like, it's fine, I've got a headlamp. Well, we both had headlamps, but one of our headlamps did not have batteries that were still going, and so we had to play this game where one of us had a headlamp and the other one had to walk really close, and it's very difficult to do that. So just make sure to always have a headlamp, and you just don't want the sun to dictate how long you can stay out. And the woods gets dark a lot faster than open terrain, so it's kind of hard. I started packing for my dog Oreo when we got him in May of 2013. And I never had to pack for a dog before, but you have to pack extra water, extra food, a bowl, You have to mark your dog's water because you don't want to mix it up with your water, because I pour his water back into his water bowl. And you have to carry his poop. So it's always nice just to get your dog his own backpack or her own backpack so your dog can carry all those things. And another packing lesson I've learned is that you need to pack a lot of water, especially if you're going on a long, strenuous hike. And there is no place that I've learned that lesson better than on Katahdin. If it's not me that hasn't packed enough water, it's a person I meet on the way down. Well, we met a man on the way down who hadn't packed enough water, and there's many times that this has actually happened. We've come across another hiker and they're getting delirious, and we share water with that hiker. People just don't realize how much water you consume when you're hiking all day long. So even though your pack feels really heavy in the beginning, just pack more water than you think you'll ever need, and odds are you'll drink most of it. Bring first aid kit. This is the hard way I learned this lesson is I was on Old Speck Mountain out in western Maine, hiking by myself, and I only fall in the easiest places. It's never the places that are difficult or technical. I always fall into not paying attention, and it's always the simplest places. In this particular case, I was right near the end of the hike, and I was standing at this wonderful overlook, and it was a nice flat rock that kind of slanted down, and I was holding on to a tree beside me, just enjoying the view, and then I went to step forward, and I fell flat on my face on the granite, scraping up both hands, both knees, just kind of jarring my whole body. I was perfectly fine. My sunglasses flew off my head and went skidding down the rock and off the cliff. And I was all by myself, so I was kind of a little shaken up. And I got up, and I was like, oh, I think I'm fine. I'm just bleeding everywhere. I've got scrapes everywhere. And I didn't have a first aid kit. I didn't have anything to fix myself up with. So I find myself walking down, the trail, putting water on my scrapes and taking leaves off trees and trying to fix myself up. And then I walk by a big group of Boy Scouts, and they all look at me horrified. And I was so embarrassed because I wasn't really that hurt. I was just really embarrassed. And they were asking me if I was okay and all that stuff. So now it's really important to bring first aid kit. And I always just bring it with me. I rarely use it, but I'm glad that I have it. And it's really small. You can just buy it at an outfitter store. It's not like this big kit. You could just have a little small one. Pack of tissues, that's always important. There's a weird thing that I get sometimes when I do big mountains. I can't remember what it's called, like mountain cold or something, but when you're coming down the mountain, your nose starts to run. I don't know if anyone else has experienced that. It's miserable if you don't have any tissues or a handkerchief or something to use. So I always have tissues in there, and for other reasons, I suppose. And then hand warmers and foot warmers for the winter. I always just feel better to have those because once your hands start to feel really cold, you become miserable.
Hiking lessons learned the hard way. The speaker is Bangor Daily News outdoor writer Aislinn Sarnacki, whose 1-minute hike series lets readers enjoy her adventures, and right now we're enjoying her misadventures. Up next, footwear. Do you remember how we opened the show?
My 2 big toenails turned black afterwards and fell off.
This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. Saturday mornings at 9, Sunday mornings at 8. Today's show goes back 2 weeks to the Eastern Maine Sportsman Show. Bangor Daily News outdoor writer Aislinn Sarnacki did a presentation called Hiking Lessons Learned the Hard Way. As she's relating all the mistakes she's made while hiking over the last few years, I'm checking them off my list too because I've made most of them as well. I always make this next one. Whenever I buy hiking boots, it's like one of the first things I do in the morning, sort of getting that chore done, often as I'm just about to go hiking. Wrong.
So my first footwear lesson that I've learned the hard way is making sure your boots aren't too small. I worked at an outfitter in Epic Sports in Bangor, if you know it. And I worked there for 3 years, and I helped people with selecting their footwear. I knew all about this, and I still made this mistake. And your feet swell a lot when you hike. Actually, people who hike the Appalachian Trail, their feet will swell and actually gain sizes as they go sometimes. And so when you're trying on your hiking shoes, say you're going to purchase a new pair of hiking shoes, you want to do that later in the afternoon after you've been walking all day. And make sure you can fit in those hiking socks as well and those shoes. And I learned that lesson the hard way by hiking Katahdin with shoes that were too small for me. And my 2 big toenails turned black afterwards and fell off. And that has happened twice. So I've clearly not learned my lesson yet, but it's really important to make sure your shoes have a little bit of room in the toes. Also, since my trail name is Wobbly Ankles, thanks to my boyfriend Derek, I used to wear low-cut hiking shoes. I just didn't like the way the high cuts looked or felt or something, and now I always wear hiking shoes that have higher ankles so that I have that support. So I think that that's pretty important. Even if you don't think you have ankle problems, a good way to get ankle problems is to wear low-cut hiking shoes and then twist your ankle. So that's just my opinion. And I always go for Gore-Tex. Gore-Tex is a waterproof material in your shoes. It's actually kind of like a bootie. It's actual material. And I use it all the time because Maine is almost always wet. There's really rarely a trail that's completely dry. And Gore-Tex breathes out. And so you don't get super sweaty feet either. And lastly, no good footwear is good without some great socks underneath them. So I always use wool or synthetic hiking socks, never cotton. And that brings you over to clothing lessons. No cotton. When you're out in the wilderness, I know we always wear cotton in regular day to day. Cotton gets wet and it's hard to dry. And that's kind of dangerous when you're hiking because you can get cold or you're just uncomfortable the entire time. So wearing a synthetic or wool material, and they make some really soft wool stuff now. It's expensive. Often it's merino wool is what it's called. And I have really sensitive skin, and I still wear merino wool, and it's not bad at all. But usually, synthetic. A lot of workout shirts and pants are synthetic nowadays. So on long, strenuous hikes, I like to bring an extra shirt because at the top, I tend to sweat a lot when I hike. And so at the top, it's always nice to switch out into a nice, fresh shirt, especially because at the summit, it gets really cold. And that's why you need to bring a wind jacket, an extra layer, even in the summer. Especially if you're going to be hiking a big mountain like Katahdin, we always bring an extra layer, and it needs to block wind. Because wind whips right up over the mountains usually. And in the winter, I always pack a buff, or it's a face or neck warmer, and especially this past winter. And I found that fleece-lined hats I prefer fleece-lined hats because they're a lot warmer. And I also prefer mittens because that keeps your fingers together and helps you stay warmer. And always dress in layers, which I think you've probably heard before.
If you're just joining us, this is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine, and Aislinn Sarnacki is giving us hiking lessons she's learned the hard way during her 3 years of writing about her hikes in the Bangor Daily News. Next lesson.
So gear lessons that I have learned. When I first started using snowshoes, I did not use poles. I don't know why. It seems silly now, but snowshoes are so much easier to use with poles. And going off of that, a lot of people use hiking poles in general, and they really help take the stress off your legs, especially going downhill. I don't use them, but when I backpack, when I have a heavy pack on, I do. So it just depends. And a lot of people ask me when I'm looking for a backpack, what should I look for? For day hikes, I look for a backpack that has chest strap and a belt. It doesn't have to be like a heavy duty belt, but a belt so that when I'm tipping over, my backpack isn't sloshing around on my back because that drives me crazy. It also helps take some stress off of your shoulders to have those straps. And I like a lot of compartments, so I know where things are because I place them in compartments. I like a ventilated back. You'll see a lot of high-tech bags out there with ventilated backs, and if you've been hiking a lot, you'll know that your back tends to get really sweaty against your backpack, especially in the summer. Padded straps obviously are pretty important just for the comfort of your shoulders. And I like to have the hydration bag as an option. I use a Camelback, which is a pretty popular brand. And I actually use a Mule. I've had it for years and it's stayed right together. It's actually a mountain biking pack. And so it has room for a helmet, like a compartment in the back for a helmet, but I put my jacket in it if I have to take my jacket off, or any wet clothing, so I really like that. And it's meant for males, but it doesn't matter. For some reason the female Camelbacks are way too small for me, so they're just too short. Usually when it comes to gear, you do get what you pay for, so more expensive gear, there's usually a reason for it. And if you ever have questions, you should probably just ask a local outfitter. I'm a big proponent of that. I like, maybe because I worked at an outfitter, and I think they all have some knowledge to give you. And also, sunglasses that fit are a must. I've gone through plenty of sunglasses that I liked the sunglasses, but when I tried to put them on the top of my head, they didn't stay on my head, and then I went to go do something and they fell off. So look for sunglasses that fit on the top of your head, and then they fit so when you're looking down, they're not going to fall off your face. Seems like a no-brainer, but it takes, a couple fallen sunglasses to figure it out. This is from a hike that I took in Bigelow Range. I'm sitting in my tent here. This is the first time I ever stayed overnight by myself in the forest. It was a really cool experience, but the only thing I wish I'd had with me that I didn't have was a pillow. And it sounds funny, but a lot of people, what I plan to do is I put my dirty clothes in a stuff sack, and I wanted to put my head on that. I heard that worked really well. But someone from an outfitter told me once, I did the whole Appalachian Trail, and the one luxury I afforded myself was a small travel pillow. And I always thought she was crazy for doing that. Now I can see why, because a pillow really helps you sleep, and not having a pillow is pretty tough. Weather-related lessons that I've learned is hiking in the rain can actually be quite fun. We took a hike with the Orono Land Trust recently last year at the Caribou Bog Conservation Area, and it was raining the entire time, and the group had a great time regardless. And if it's sunny, wear sunscreen. It seems like a no-brainer, but we were hiking A-Ball Trail up Katahdin a couple of years ago, and now it's closed actually, so unfortunately but the trail is open to the sun almost the entire way. It's over a lot of boulders, there's no shade in sight, and we all thought, let's get a suntan, and it was like really early in the year, none of us really had any tan on, so we were excited to get out in the sun. We came back with the worst sunburn I've ever had. All of us had pretty much the next day I was feeling miserable. I don't know if I had sun poisoning or what, but it was the worst sunburn ever, and we had to sleep in tents that night, so not exactly comfortable. So sunscreen is a must. Pack lip balm on it. It's kind of a similar no-brainer, but your lips tend to get really chapped when you spend a lot of time outdoors in the wind and the sun. Make sure to take short breaks if you are hiking in the winter, especially this past winter. We try to keep moving all the time to keep our heat going, because as soon as you stop, you get cold. And kind of the opposite of that is if you start sweating, you need to take off a layer. Even in the winter, often I would just hike it this winter in a fleece, starting out with a down layer, something like that, and then I would end up in a fleece. And that's just the way it goes. If you start sweating, you don't want to sweat and then have it, it gets really dangerous because that can get you to be really cold quickly.
I'm Bob Duchesne, that's Aislinn Sarnacki, and this is Hiking Lessons Learned the Hard Way. If you've seen her 1-minute hike videos or read her column in the Bangor Daily News, you know that Aislinn is often accompanied by her pit bull, Oreo. Well, up next, her lessons on hiking with dogs, and she'll answer the question, what is the most dangerous critter in the woods? When Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine returns on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. This is Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket with Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. This is the weekend for Maine Maple Sunday. In a few minutes, we're going to end the show with a close look at a proposed new law that would make maple the official Maine state sweetener. Yeah, hear me out. First, a few more hiking lessons learned the hard way from Bangor Daily News Outdoors writer Aislinn Sarnacki, starting with the challenge of hiking with dogs. Yeah, you gotta pick up the poop.
So some dog-related lessons is that you can't take them everywhere. From experience, people ask me, like, what percentage of hikes in Maine can you have a dog on? And I think it's about 60 to 70% from experience of the trails are open to dogs. And you always have to check when you're going on a trail, do they allow dogs here? And a lot of that has to do, a lot of nature preserves that are really trying to preserve important habitat for wildlife do not permit dogs, and there's a good reason for it. And follow the rules, I always say. And when it comes to getting a hiking dog, if you're thinking about getting a dog, the breed does matter. My friend Kim has an English bulldog, and she takes it for walks in the Bangor City Forest, but it can only really go about a mile before it starts getting asthma attacks. So I wouldn't want to bring that dog on a big mountain like Oreo and I do, but Oreo is a pit bull. We think he's a pit bull mix, but we've been told he's just straight pit bull. So he has so much energy, as most pit bulls do, and but the problem with Oreo is that he doesn't have much fur. So he wears coats pretty much from fall to spring, and people think I'm just trying to dress him up to be cute, but he needs them. He wears 2 coats this past winter on every single hike. We doubled him up because he was getting really cold. And so for gear for your dog, with Oreo, I always steer people towards Musher's Secret Wax. It's a type of wax that you put on your dog's feet to help them with if their feet are drying out or if they're getting cold. It actually helps keep the feet warm and helps feet against some sharp objects like rocks, things like that. And I also have a Geo Designs squishy bowl that I pack for Oreo. It's made in Maine. Geo Designs is a Maine company, and the bowl actually squishes, and you can pour his water back into his water bottle, which I really like because he doesn't always drink water when I want him to. And then you have to make sure to mark his water bottle so you don't drink out of his water bottle. A 6-foot leash is required on a lot of Maine trails. And high energy snacks. Don't forget to pack snacks for your dog. We do dog jerky a lot. And they also need waste bags because you need to pick up after your own dog on the trail. And another thing with outfitting your dog is you're going to need some bright clothing. Maine has so many hunting seasons that I don't even know really what to consider hunting season. I think just making your dog visible is a great thing all times of year. And the big reason for that is do you know the number one thing that dogs have been mistaken for when they've been shot in the woods on accident? What is the animal they're always mistaken for?
Coyote.
Coyote, exactly. So when's coyote season?
You're right.
Yeah. So I've looked back on our Bangor Daily News archives, and pretty much the only time that dogs have been shot on accident is when someone thought it was a coyote, and that's a year-round thing. So Oreo probably wouldn't be mistaken for a coyote. Maybe he would be mistaken for a Hampshire pig, perhaps, or something like that. But we like to keep him nice and bright. It also helps us see him, too. If it's a trail that doesn't need a leash and he's running around, then we can see him better. So, and then also it's kind of tough. So sometimes for your dog, you're going to need to get a custom-made vest or jacket. Oreo has a big chest and very short legs and a very big neck. And so a lot of jackets just don't even fit him. And Duchesne Designs is right in Bangor, and they make custom-made stuff. So that's pretty cool. And yeah, so I've always gone to them. So that's where his jackets are from Duchesne Designs. And they are not paying me to do this. I just really like their stuff. And as I said before, you can always make them carry their own stuff. It gives them a job to do. So Oreo has so much energy, it's really good that he has that job.
The voice you're hearing on Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine is Aislinn Sarnacki. And this comes from a program at the Eastern Maine Sportsman Show a couple of weeks ago called Hiking Lessons Learned the Hard Way.
So my last thing is nature-related lessons that I have learned. So the number one dangerous critter in the Maine forest, I would say, is ticks. I am not really scared of any other critter out there except for ticks. And they have a lot of diseases. They carry a lot of different diseases now, Lyme disease being the number one scare. But I found they're most prevalent in southern and coastal Maine, but they're found in all counties now. There have been places in the west, like when I was in the Bigelow Preserve, they said they don't really see ticks there. And there's places in the north they say they don't really see ticks. But I always suggest doing a tick check, and not only right after your hike, but doing a second tick check later, because I've had a tick crawl out of my hair before, right onto my forehead, and that was very creepy. They will go on your hair and then come out later. So, porcupines, if you have a dog, this is really the only thing. If you don't have a dog, they don't bother you at all. But porcupines, dogs will go after them, and they're very slow. I actually saw one, got really excited, and was like, oh, how am I going to take a picture? Like, he's going to run off. They don't run, really. They waddle. They don't go anywhere. So this is one that I saw. It waddled to the nearest tree and climbed up it. It was the cutest thing ever. But it's one reason to leash your dog, because I've seen them all over the place. Stinging nettle, I did not know what this was until we walked into a sea of it. It's fairly common. It's found around rivers, river areas, and this is in Unity. All of these plants are stinging nettle. They look fairly harmless, and they feel fairly harmless when you're walking through. They actually do not prickle you or anything. And then all of a sudden you start to feel like your legs are on fire and your arms are on fire, because it actually comes up to your arms when it's full grown. We had no idea what was going on. It was Derek and I walking through this on a trail, actually, and all of a sudden I was like, are your legs burning? He was like, yeah, they feel kind of funny. And we started going insane. I almost thought I was going to lose my mind. I was itching so badly. It does have these little teeny needle-like furs on it that have toxin, and the toxin will make you break out into a rash. The good thing is the rash goes away in about an hour. So it's not the end of the world. I was very happy to see that. What is the end of the world is if you run into hogweed, and that's found on some Maine islands. And it has something in it that is activated by sunlight. So you don't really know you have a problem until you get the sunlight. And I've heard that people have developed a rash that will stay on them for years with hogweed. So that is pretty much the only thing that I think is really, really can be a problem. Poison ivy, though, can produce scarring. So it's just really good to look up these plants, know what they look like, and in what habitats you might find them in, and keep your eye out.
One last mistake. Tell somebody where you're going. I make this one all the time. I like to go places off the beaten track. In fact, I'm so bad at telling somebody where I'm going that you're never going to find the body. Maybe I should leave a note.
Absolutely. I should add that. Absolutely. That's the number one thing that I tell people, yes. Not only tell someone where you're going to be, but write it out for them, because they're not necessarily always going to remember. And even tell two people and say, if I don't get back by this time, then you need to try to contact me. And if I'm not answering, then you need to try to mobilize rescue, because I go out hiking alone a lot, and that is the peace of mind. Even if it's a short trail in a well-known forest, especially in the winter, like half the time no one's out there. Even in like Great Pond Wildlands, which I'm in Orland, it's a really popular spot. But if you're on a weekday in the winter by yourself and you get out there and you get in trouble, it's good that someone knows where you are. And then I always carry an emergency blanket with me so that I can throw that over myself. It's like this big. It looks like a little space blanket, and it's super cheap. And you could throw that over yourself, say if you like broke your leg, and you need to wait for someone to come rescue you, and it helps keep the heat in. Yeah. Things to add to my presentation. Thank you. Thank you.
That is Aislinn Sarnecki, outdoor writer for the Bangor Daily News, talking about hiking lessons learned the hard way. The fourth Sunday of March every year is Maine Maple Sunday. This is the weekend. Sugar houses all over Maine will be selling the sweet stuff. In fact, it is a surprisingly big boost to our economy, important enough that the Maine legislature might just make it the official state sweetener. Representative Russell Black put in the bill, and he's up next as Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine continues on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. Welcome back to Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. The fourth Sunday in March is Maine Maple Sunday. If you're thinking about hitting a sugar shack, go to MaineMapleProducers.com and look up one near you. MaineMapleProducers.com. Sugaring is a bigger business than most people realize. In fact, it would be even bigger if we promoted it more. That's what the industry and Russell Black thought. Russell Black is a lawmaker from Wilton who runs a diversified farm that includes a maple sugar operation. This year, he sponsored a bill in the legislature, LD 110, that would recognize maple syrup as the official state sweetener. Now, wait a minute. Before you mutter something under your breath, let's hear more about it. I've got Representative Russell Black on the phone. Are you getting a lot of grief for this bill?
Well, it was listed on one radio station as one of the top 5 silliest bills. But most people I talk to see the vast difference. I mean, the maple syrup industry is a tremendously expanded business. We right now we have 1.8 million taps in Maine. We're the second or third largest producer by state. Somerset County is the largest, produces more syrup than any other county in the United States.
Really?
Oh, yeah. It's
Somerset does?
Somerset County. Somerset County is the largest producing county in the United States.
No kidding.
And that county alone has, the 1.8 has 1.4 plus million taps in it.
Wow.
And growing, continually. And of course, new technology has increased the amount of sap that we get per tap, so we're making more syrup all the time. And in Maine, we just had the University of Maine do a study for us. I'm chairman of the Maple Syrup Task Force, which is a legislative task force, which was started in the 125th, and we've been going 4 years. And we finally had the University of Maine do us a study a year ago, and we're growing between 15 and 25% every 2 years, and rapidly expanded. It's a good product. It's natural sweetener, which is really helping us. We're producing more maple sugar now, and they're using it instead of white bleach sugar. And,
well, it tastes better.
Yes. It's a natural sweetener, and that was part of our reason for the bill. We're trying. We're concerned with the expansion in number of taps and the expansion in technology that we're going to have to look to places to market this, and we would also. I mean, we still run into people in the state of Maine. Some of them are tourists, but some of them are natives that still don't realize that we make maple syrup. They think of that other state. I can't remember what that other state is that makes maple syrup, but so we thought we needed to really promote Maine, pure Maine maple syrup, and we want to use it in our promotion and expansion of our marketing. That's why the industry had me put the bill in.
Well, I would think that we could almost fit Vermont inside Somerset County. It's got to be a close match.
Well,
yeah.
I
was looking up some stats on this, and I guess it means $25 million in income to farmers in Maine. That's not a small number.
No, and 25 to 28 in actual sales to the farmers, and then there was another 18 to 20 million dollars in labor. So we're starting to get up there. I mean, the total multiplier effect was closer to 70 million. So it's not anything to be sneezed at. It's really expanding. And in the task force, we had some of the Department of Forestry work with us and come up with some figures. And we have identified through the Department of Forestry that we have the availability to tap 41 million taps in the state of Maine.
Yeah.
41 million. That by itself in Somerset County, and it takes about one person can manage about 10,000 taps. It's a full-time job for one person to manage 10,000 taps.
How is that even possible? That's a big number.
Well, you've got to have pipeline and that kind of stuff, and you can't go out and give it, buckets and do 10,000 taps. but once you get, you're working year round, and getting your pipeline and your materials so where you're mechanized, you can do that, with modern technology. So that would be over 545 full-time new jobs in Somerset County if we tapped all the available maple trees in Somerset County.
Well, in that case, for everybody who thought this was a silly bill, you start to look at the economics and realize we have a growing industry, growing faster than our competitors. It's a big amount of money being brought into the economy, and we haven't even started to promote it as well as we could. Sometimes it just starts with a simple recognition that, hey, we got something good here, and it could be an official state sweetener.
That's right. It is a good sweetener. It's good for you. Years ago, about the time the state was founded, it was used as currency. I mean, we were selling out of this area, out of the state of Maine, thousands and thousands of pounds of maple sugar and competing with the cane sugar in the southern part of the United States.
Wow.
And it was a big time. New England had a big financial economic boom from maple sugar.
Well, it's also healthier than corn syrup. Corn syrup really is calories and not much more.
Right. I mean, it also in the boiling down process, it also concentrates the amount of antioxidants in it. So and they found that it contains antioxidants. So not to the extent of some of our Maine blueberries or something like that, but it does. It's a very healthy sugar sweetener. A lot better than corn syrup. A lot better than bleached white sugar. A lot better than any of the artificial syrup, sweeteners that we're using. So it's good for you.
Well, when you go after making it the official Maine state sweetener, you must have had a little bit of pushback from the honeymakers.
I did not have any. Did not have any. No, it was never brought up in testimony. The Department of Ag came in and testified neither for nor against the bill. They did recognize honey. They didn't want to take sides. But honey was less than $1 million compared to us. And I believe that the honeybee is an imported insect. So Maine maple trees, have been here forever, and just natural for us to pick it. And we had no pushback from and a lot of us. I'm a beekeeper myself, and I realized how much bigger the maple syrup industry is, and how fast it's expanded. And we haven't even started to do any. We're still not bottling. We have no big major bottling redistribution centers or any manufacturing. Now, Vermont, New Hampshire, Quebec all have large factories that are producing, the evaporators, the buckets, the tubing, and that kind of stuff. And we haven't even touched on that. We're still importing, all that stuff from other states. So, I mean, we're hoping that, some of those sheet metal places will spring up as we grow and the demand is here, that we'll start warehousing and manufacturing some of those goods here.
Sometimes we as a state fail to recognize what economic development is actually a potential for us, and yet here we have one sitting right under our very noses.
And it's statewide. It's not just Somerset County, Franklin County. I mean, Maine Maple Sunday has been, this will be our 32nd year, and that's a tremendous marketing plus for us. It was a brainchild of 6 or 8 maple producers from Franklin and Somerset County. They got together in a kitchen and decided to do it, and it's been the greatest thing. I mean, a lot of industries, a lot of commodities have gone and used that, like open farm days and some of these other things have gone, and other states have used it. Now all the other states are going to Maine, to Maple Sundays and Maple Weekends and that kind of stuff. But we were the first. Maine was the first. And so now we've got this bill passed out of committee, unanimous. It took some work, and we're hoping that it'll go under the hammer in the House and Senate, and we will be the first state to have pure Maine maple syrup as the official sweetener of Maine.
Well, I really think it was a good idea, and you can count on my vote.
Good. I probably will need it, but I think it's going to be. I think it's going to go through the House and Senate. Everybody recognizes what you and I do, that it's a tremendous industry, and it's a good industry. It's a natural. It keeps It keeps our woodlands open. I mean, I have trees on my farm that are 150, 200 years old that my grandfather tapped.
Well, and some of those trees, 150, 200 years old, they're older than John Martin, but not by much.
Boy, not much.
Well, you'll be glad to know that my wife is trying to keep me healthy, so I have Maine maple syrup at least once a week.
Good. Now you could have it on your cereal every morning.
I could have it on my hot dogs. I like it that way.
Yeah. So,
Well, certainly the fact that you might bring me free samples won't influence my vote.
yeah. I wouldn't want to do that.
No,
I wouldn't want to. No.
All right. Thanks
All right.
a lot.
Well, thank you, Bob, for having me.
Representative Russell Black, whose bill to make maple syrup the official state sweetener, looks like it's going to pass and become law. Hey, if we can make money off Moxie and whoopie pies, we sure as heck can do it off maple syrup. Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine is brought to you by Hammond Lumber, Dysarts, EBS, Doors Equipment, and Napa Auto Parts. We'll be back next Saturday at 9 a.m. and Sunday morning at 8 a.m. and online at 929theticket.com. This is Sports Radio 929 The Ticket.